So welcome back, guys. Today's video is going to be just a little bit different. I've had quite a few people in the comment section asking me, actually kind of a surprising amount of people asking me how the pig project went. Are we eating bacon yet? How did it turn out? That kind of thing. Are they in the freezer yet? So what I want to do is I kind of want to make a dedicated video talking about the pigs, and I'm going to do kind of 4 parts in this video. We're going to talk about kind of the hard numbers on the pigs, how financially it turned out, was it worth it? And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the mistakes that I made. This was the first year that I did this, so there were lots and lots of mistakes that were made. We'll look at those mistakes, and the next part, what we'll do is we'll see how we're going to fix those mistakes for next year, because we are planning to do pigs again, and our good friends at VEVOR have kind of set us the centerpiece of how we're going to do things different next year. In the 4th part of the video, what I want to do is put a store-bought pork chop side by side with one of our homegrown pork chops and kind of see how it stacks up. All right, let's go ahead and look at the numbers here. How much money we put into the pigs, how much meat we got out, that kind of thing. Now, some of these numbers here are going to seem really, really high because they are really, really high. We're going to go over kind of in the next section of this video what we're going to do to get those numbers lower for next year. So, first of all, we put in $50 each on the pigs. Then we kept the pigs for 7 months, and we put in about $800 worth of food into the pigs. And that $800 represents, this isn't monetary, but we're just going to put this over here to the side. That number represents about 2,400 pounds of food. The processing fee for both of the pigs was $563. So let's go ahead and do this math real quick. Total there is $1,463. The hanging weight of the pigs, one of the pigs was 200 pounds, the other pig was 195 pounds. At the end of the day, we've got, 395 pounds of hanging weight on the pigs. Now, as far as finished meat goes, we got a total of 180 pounds of meat from both of the pigs right there. That comes out to $8.12 per pound. Now, if you're thinking that that number is incredibly high and that this project really was not worth it, well, you'd be right on one of those counts. This project was very expensive, but it was worth it. We learned a ton about raising our own meat, and I think that we're going to be in a much better position of how to go forward next year. One of the mistakes that I made last year was keeping the pigs in this very small pen for probably way too long. So this is a 16 by 16 pen. It's just 4 cattle panels, and that is technically enough to raise out a pig, but the pigs, all they can do is just kind of lay there and get fat. And by get fat, I don't mean get big and muscular and meaty. I mean just get fat, and that fat is something that you lose when you go to process your pig. Right here you can see the remnants of the fence that I made for them after about 5.5 or 6 months or something like that. I kept them in that 16 by 16 for that amount of time, and then I moved them to pasture, I guess you could say. This is actually just the woods in an enclosed section with electric fence. And it was so interesting to watch because there were 2 pigs that we had. Most of y'all remember we had that brown one and we had that spotted white one, and the brown one would always let me touch him, let me pet him, let me approach him, whatever, but the white one was always incredibly skittish. It was the run of the litter that we picked out, and it just kind of had a standoffish personality. It didn't want to be touched, it didn't want to be measured, it didn't want any of that stuff. But once I let him out onto this pasture or the woods or whatever you want to call it, sorry y'all, the wind's blowing bad. We've got Hurricane Nicole coming in. But once we got him out onto pasture here, eventually he warmed up, and he eventually let me measure him, and I could touch him and pet him and all of that kind of stuff. His personality improved greatly. They were clearly a whole lot happier out here on this pasture. So my plan next year, and this was supposed to be in the next part of the video, but that's fine. My plan next year is to put him in that enclosure for the first, I don't know, month and a half, something like that, until they get large enough that they can defend themselves, and get them trained to the electric fence around the bottom of that fence that'll be there next year, and then let them out into pasture like this. I've also got a lot of places on this property that I want to have cleared out, and when I put those pigs into their larger enclosure, pasture, woods, whatever you want to call it, they did a wonderful job of clearing land. So my plan next year is to move them around in different size paddocks and different areas of our land so that I can have some land clearers basically. Another mistake that I made this last time around was not giving them some kind of an open feeder. I just had 2 bowls out here that I would come and put food in, and I gave them plenty of food, but if I had had an open feeder out here, they could have gotten what they wanted when they wanted it, and it's possible that they could have grown out a little bit faster. One of the biggest mistakes that I think I made this last go round was keeping the pigs as long as I kept them. I had this expectation that my pigs would get to 300 pounds and I would have these massive porkers going to the market, and that just really didn't work out. We kept them for 7 months, and during the last month they just didn't put on a ton of weight. They did put on some, but they kind of hit some kind of a plateau in their growth, and they just didn't put on as much weight as I was putting in feed. I was probably feeding them 12 to 15 pounds per day of food, and the growth rate slowed to a point where it really just was not worth it. So this next time around, I'm looking to kind of cut this time a little bit shorter and maybe get them to the butcher at 225, something like that, 5-6 months, somewhere along in there, and I think that'll cut costs quite a bit. Another change that I'm going to make next year, I'm not going to call this a mistake because this is really the only thing that I knew to do, but another huge change that we're going to make next year is I hope to stop buying store-bought pig feed altogether. So let's go check out and I'll show you how we're going to do that. Our friends at VEVOR have really come through for us this time. This is a corn grinder, and corn of course is the primary ingredient in hog feed, and this right here is going to allow me to grind up my own whole corn that I can get in bulk in barrels into a fine powder, into a meal that we can mix in protein supplement and minerals and stuff like that to get the corn, get the feed up to the proper protein level for the pigs. All right, well, let's give it a try here. I guess that's grits right there, really. I thought there was some cornmeal there, but that's pretty much some very coarse grits, and that would work perfectly fine for pig feed. Let's do a little bit more here. So that I've got coming out is most definitely cornmeal. That is some super fine stuff right there. You can also grind flour with this thing if you have some wheat. And they can grind other stuff too. I'll give you all the link and all of that stuff. But it'll also crack corn. Let's bring it out a little bit and we'll do some cracked corn. You see, I'm sure y'all saw the lights dim. It's actually on the same line the lights are, so it's sucking a lot of electricity. It'll crack corn pretty easy. And by the way, this is going to be great for chicken food too. We're planning on doing quite a few meat chickens next year, and of course I've got laying hens, and I fully plan to make my own chicken food and pig food and whatever else I can do with this thing. So this thing has really opened up a lot of possibilities. All right, y'all, let's check out some of this meat here. So I'll give y'all about 3 seconds to guess which one of these came off of our little homestead here and which one of these came out of the grocery store this morning. So did A come out of the grocery store or did B come out of the grocery store? All right, time's up. B did not come out of the grocery store. This is our store-bought pork chop, and you can see just really right off the bat, let me get in a little bit closer here. You can see there is a very significant difference here. This one was butchered a month or so ago, something like that. This one came out of our local Piggly Wiggly this morning. Now, to be fair, our local Piggly Wiggly isn't really world renowned for world quality meat. But still, this is kind of really what you can expect when you get pork from a grocery store. This light color like this. This seems to be kind of a standard pork chop. The first thing that I have noticed with these pork chops that we made right here, that we grew rather, is there's quite a bit of fat in these compared to the ones you get from the store. Flip this over here. So quite a bit of fat. You got a big thick ring of fat around there, fat all through the middle, marbling all through there. And in this one, there is some of that. There's a thin fat ring right here, or edge, or I don't know what you call that. And you have a tiny bit of marbling, just some very thin spots of fat in there, but not very much. It's just not a whole lot going on in there as far as fat content goes. There's some in there right there. And you think initially, well, that's a good thing. That meat's probably a little bit healthier, right? Well, I don't know how much healthier it is, but the thing is, the fat is really where you get a lot of your moisture and your flavor out of your meat. And these are far superior, we have found, in flavor to these right here. The second thing, really the first thing that we noticed, I guess it was the color. This meat right here from a homegrown pig looks more like a steak from a cow. It looks like beef more so than it looks like what you would consider, or what you would expect pork to look like, at least from a grocery store. So huge difference in color, huge difference in fat content. And you're going to see that fat content here in just a minute when we put these on the grill. You're going to see this one drip quite a bit and this one won't so much. So anyway, here's our initial look at two different cuts of meat, or the same cut of meat really. They're both pork chops. And two different pigs, I guess you could say. One farm-raised commercial pig and one locally grown pig right here. So you can already see what I'm talking about here. These have only been on here for maybe 1 to 2 minutes or something like that, and you can see the flame down there. That's just fat dripping off of this homestead pork chop there, and that's just not happening on this one over here. What'd you come out here for? You smell the pork? You smell the pork? I bet you do. So here are our results. That took a lot longer than I expected. I bought some non-Kingsford charcoal, and that was my mistake. So here's our homestead pork chop right here, and here's our grocery store pork chop. I've already cut into that to see if it was done earlier on the grill. So here's what we'll do. We'll just take a little cut here and look at the insides, and then we'll do our taste test here in a minute. This is the homestead pork chop. Get that out of the way. You see the inside, you got a big piece of fat right in there, and the rest of it not super light, but somewhat of a light color in that. Let's go over here to this one. If I can. There we go. All right, so here they are. Oops. Here they are side by side. Homestead one, grocery store one right here. You see there's a pretty significant difference in the color of that meat. All right, guys, so let's give this a try. This is something I've never done on camera. I don't think I've ever taste tested anything on camera before, but here it goes. First, I'm going to do the store-bought one first, I guess. I know everybody's favorite noise is somebody chewing on camera. So all I did to this was I put some of this Grill Mates McCormick Montreal steak seasoning. That's all I did to this, just sprinkled a little bit of that on top of it. And it's set to focus to my face, so I'm not getting a good focus there. It tastes like what you would expect. It tastes like a store-bought pork chop. There's the seasoning on it. but the meat itself, there's not really a whole lot of flavor in the meat. There's some, but just not a whole lot. Here's the homestead pork chop here. So I wish that I could share it with y'all, because the difference is it's really striking. There's depth of flavor to it, there's richness to it. I think I overcooked it a little bit, unfortunately, but it is really good. The meat itself has got flavor. It seems to me that the flavor in the store-bought pork chop, a lot of it's kind of coming from the seasoning that I put on it, but this one that we grew, it's got flavor in and of itself, and it is good flavor, let me tell you. There's a piece there that's got a little chunk of fat on it. It's just two totally different flavors. I don't know how else to say it. It's two totally different flavors. That was one of the store-bought ones there. I don't know how to describe it. The flavor is just so strikingly different between these two animals. It's just literally a night and day difference. I told my wife earlier, I was on the phone with her, and I said, hey, guess what? I bought some pork chops from the store, and the first thing she said was, who's going to eat that? I mean, it's a big difference. It's a really big difference. Well guys, that's going to do it for this video. That was probably the best way that I have ever ended a video, and I may make that some kind of a tradition here on the channel, but I hope that this video was informative. Next year we have got some pretty big plans with the pigs. We are up to 5 now between friends and family who want either a whole pig or a half of a pig, and I hope that we have made most of our mistakes. I know that there are still plenty of mistakes out there to be made, but I think we've made a lot of our mistakes now, and I'm hoping that we can go forward next year and do this whole pig farming thing just a little bit cheaper and probably a little bit easier too, while using the pigs to help us out here to clear land and so on and so forth. So this is definitely something I want to continue to do into the future. I really enjoyed raising these pigs. The payoff monetary was not so great, but as far as meat goes, it was phenomenal. I mean, that meat that we have got is just no comparison to what you can find in a grocery store, and I know the video just doesn't do those 2 pork chops any justice as far as comparing them. A big shout out again to our friends at VEVOR. They have really set me up here as far as being able to make hog feed and chicken feed and that kind of thing. And if y'all are interested in one of these or any of the other stuff that they sell, they've got a whole lot of really cool homesteading products, woodworking products, metalworking products, that kind of stuff. Check out their site. I'll leave a link. There's a 5% discount all across the site for Fall on Ridge viewers, and I hope that you can find something that's useful. But again, that's going to do it for this one, and I will see y'all on the next one.